How did we get here?
Technology is advancing at a phenomenal rate. Artificial eyes to cybernetic limbs.
The promise of a better future.
That promise of a better future isn't fully realized in Deus Ex. It's a series that deftly weaves modern conspiracy theories, transhumanism, bioethics, and futurism into an engaging look at our near future. Okay, first off, let's sort these games out. Here's the timeline we're working with here. The first game, Deus Ex, was set in 2052, but it was released in the year 2000. Deus Ex Invisible War, which came out in 2004, is set in 2072, and serves as the end of the story as far as the video games are concerned. Now, a prequel to these two was released in 2011. It was called Deus Ex Human Revolution, and it was set in the year 2027. Its sequel, Mankind Divided, came out in 2015 and was set in 2029. While the first two games are the most retro of the series, their respective stories are set much further in the future than those of the more recent games. Now that we've got that all straightened out, let's dive in. Deus Ex as a series is a fine bit of world crafting, and is made all the more familiar because of how it relies on elements that don't seem too fantastical. Let's take human augmentation for instance. This is probably the biggest prediction that Deus Ex as a series has. Now, whether it's the mechanical augmentation of human evolution and Mankind Divided, or the nano-augmentation that's envisioned in Deus Ex and Invisible War, the whole series sees humanity playing around with the very definition of human all throughout. And really, this isn't much of a stretch. Pacemakers, for instance, are a form of biomechanical augmentation, and you could argue the same for prosthetic limbs. We have devices today that you could argue are a form of augmentation, even if they're typically done to correct some defect or damage. But what about the kind of mind-body overhaul we see in the Deus Ex series? What if we started viewing the physical limits of the human body as a defect in and of itself? Wouldn't that mean that we would naturally progress from, helping someone who's had a heart attack, or naturally wanting to help someone who has lost their limbs, to just making humans better than what they are? Back in 2015, The Atlantic published an article about how DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, was looking into bioengineering soldiers. Elon Musk has recently announced a project called Neuralink. It's a brain-machine interface. Futurists and transhumanists alike predict that there will be a new species of human arising over the next century and a bit. Similar to how in Invisible War you have nano-augmented humans, you have good old regular homo sapiens, and then the cyborg hive mind sharing Omar. Meanwhile, the mechanically augmented humans are already extinct at this point. So with all of this work that's currently being done today that we know of, it looks like we're well on our way to some sort of Adam Jensen or JC Denton. I mean, really, who knows what the government's working on? Now, that kind of paranoia is a hallmark of the Deus Ex series, and the world of the future it envisions is chock full of conspiracy. I'm not going to spend any time talking about the Illuminati right now, because while I find the whole concept interesting in fiction, I just don't have time for it in real life. Although there is one aspect of the Illuminati I find really compelling and really interesting with how it might intersect with the way life is structured right now, and that's the function of the media in Deus Ex. In Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, we encounter the Picus Group. It's this media conglomerate that controls 94% of the world's media. Now, Picus is revealed to be controlled by the Illuminati, and its AI anchor is programmed to sift through world events and shape public opinion by controlling how stories are presented. Now, that all sounds really shitty, and not at all unlike the algorithms used by Google and Facebook. Now, on the one hand, I get it. Let's take a topic like the coronavirus or the shape of the earth. There's a ton of deliberate misinformation out there, and it feels like it's in our best interest to only have reputable sources of information at our fingertips. But in the world of Deus Ex, only Picus is a reputable source, and Eliza Cassan is the sole arbiter of truth. Nowhere is this seen better than at the end of Mankind Divided, because no matter how you choose the ending of the game, you lose, as Eliza spins the story against you. Now, thankfully, by the time the events of Deus Ex and Invisible War happens, Picus is nowhere to be seen. Still, one doesn't need a degree in communications to appreciate the fact that all the media we consume right now is inherently biased. I mean, this video itself has a bias. There's just no such thing as unbiased journalism, as the very choice of reporting on one story and not another is by definition an editorial one. So we have shades of Picus today, though thankfully not one all-encompassing news source. Yet. What if instead of one person's perspective, we're exposed to every perspective. In Deus Ex and Invisible War, the possibility of human-machine interface is explored. Now, in both games, it's possible to choose to merge the protagonist's consciousness with that of an AI, and essentially to rule/guide the Earth as a benevolent dictator. I mean, or you can let the Illuminati keep things nice and comfortable in exchange for their control over everyone, or you can let it all burn to the ground and we can all go back to the Dark Age. Or in Invisible War, you can let the cyborgs take over. So none of those are great options. But it's at least better than having one entity like Picus tell us what we're supposed to think. You know, I really shouldn't shit on Picus too much. I mean, after all, they at least found a use for Olympic Stadium. That's the boldest prediction the Deus Ex series makes. Not human augmentation, not a brain-machine interface, not the rise of different species of humans, certainly not the control of the media. No, the boldest thing that the Deus Ex series says is that one day Olympic Stadium, that festering sore on the face of Montreal, will have a purpose. Oh, and also, while this game may seem like it's a cyberpunk masterpiece, some of us know what it really is. And I think we can all take comfort in the fact that Deus Ex envisions a world where there is still basketball. There you have it. That is the future according to Deus Ex, albeit a bit of a brief look because there's a ton of content in the game. There's a ton of lore. If you have a retro game that is set in the future that you would like to see profiled, please be sure to comment down below and subscribe. And if your game is picked for the next video, you could win one of these good old days shirts. If you're not interested in commenting and you still want to pick up one of these shirts, you can head on over to our store, link down below. As always, you can, there we go. You can subscribe, here's some more videos, and until next time, happy gaming.